good evening. Good evening. Let's talk. And beautiful Thursday evening. Tonight we have a special guest. I would consider this guest more like family. She's very supportive since I met her. She's been very supportive of all the shows, which is interesting. That because I know sometimes when we do shows on Let's Talk, you may get a show that you don't like, and then you may get a show that you do like, and you're like, I don't know when they have in certain shows, so I don't know when to watch what. So appreciate this young lady for all the support she's given the platform the last few years. Tonight we have author and poet Nicole R. Brookins. What's up, Nicole?
Hey, what is up?
You tell me. As I was preparing for the show, I did tell you I didn't get a chance to actually go through the whole book, but I went through enough. Let's talk about your background, where you grew up at, what college you went to, and stuff like that. Who's Nicole R. Brookins?
Who is Nicole R. Brookins? Um, Pretty straightforward. I always say what you see is what you get. So, I was just real quick. No, I was trying to share and everything so that people can, come on in. Um, but that didn't pop up for me. But yeah, so I was born in Newark, New Jersey. Um, my mom separated, and we moved actually to South Carolina, and I pretty much grew up there. I would, come back home for the summers and stuff like that. I eventually came back to Jersey in 2004. But in that time, I graduated from high school, um, and I went to Morgan State my first year. But it was a little costly, and of course, like it's better to be at home and be hungry than be millions of miles away. It seemed like, so I wound up coming home back to South Carolina, which was my home at the time, and I decided to go to Clemson University.
Hmm.
So I graduated from
Let,
there.
let's go. Let's go. So you were a young lady that was like, I'm graduating high school.
Mhm.
I need to be part of this HBCU experience.
Yeah, it's funny because I went to pretty much a predominantly black high school. Um, so in my junior year, I went on a college tour, and it was a black college tour all up the East Coast. So we went from, Shaw University, Cheney, A&T, all of that. Went to Morgan. I fell in love. I was like, yeah, this is where I want to be. So I did a year, but like I said, it was a little expensive. They wasn't looking out for a sister, so I had to go back home. And unfortunately, I was like the top 5% of my class, but
So you was a smarty art.
I was good. I was nice with mine. But the thing is, I didn't have those counselors pushing me for scholarships and things like that, so I didn't apply. And I probably definitely could have got a scholarship, but it wasn't, like, oh well, go ahead and do this, stuff like that. So, you know,
Hindsight is always 2020, and
exactly.
as a supporter of the show, and I'm not going to take it off what we're talking about, but
Yeah, because it's
now since you went through that experience, would you recommend your younger self to have an educational advisor?
yeah, definitely. Definitely. I think it could have made my life a whole lot easier when it comes to student loans, things like that. And of course, now I'm almost done paying my student loans, and oh yeah, forgiveness. Like, who cares about that? Where were you when I had all these loans?
Yeah.
So, but everything happens for a reason. It is what it is. But I did enjoy my time at Morgan. I had a black. I actually, it was so crazy. I slept most of my freshman year. Like in between classes, I was sleeping. So I did go out once in a while. It was some old school jam, and I remember it like it was yesterday. It was like Dougie Fresh, the Furious Five, nice and smooth. I mean, loving it. But yeah, it was definitely a different. When I went to Clemson, it was like a whole new world because it's predominantly white. So it was like, you getting on the bus and people got their little bags in the seat and they're like, I'm like, oh, you gonna move that? I pay my tuition just like you pay yours. I'm gonna sit down. I'm not
Hmm.
standing up. So it was definitely a difference.
So let me ask you, Nicole.
Hmm.
Um, I'm gonna ask you about an event that happened in college, the accident. But
Okay.
I want to ask you, looking back at it now, what did you discover about you from the whole college experience? Like you said, you were one person that you did well with your grades, and like you were home, but you weren't home. So you were going through the. Was it a culture shock? You said it basically. Was it a major culture shock or just minor or just like, oh, this is what it is out here?
It was, I wouldn't say it was major because I got in with a lot of good, black people and stuff like that. Um, so it wasn't as bad, but I remember my first day being in English class and the professor, he was white. He asked, the class, so who works in here? And most people was like, no, they didn't work. But then later on in the class, someone made a comment like, oh yeah, the Mexicans are taking all our jobs. I was like, well, hold up. Y'all said y'all don't even work. And y'all don't want to do the work that they're doing. So what are you talking about? And it was just like it was crazy to me. Um, and then it seemed like a lot of times I would be the only black person in class. So it's like you're looking to me, oh, so what do you think, Miss Brookins? Like I'm speaking for the whole black race, like,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know, stuff like that. But and of course I pledged in '97 to Sigma Gamma Rho. So
Okay.
that was a whole new world for me also. I was cool with a lot of the people there. Um, but then it seemed like once I came over in the Sigma Gamma Rho, a lot of my sorority sisters, they left, they graduated or did other stuff. So it was like it was only of a couple of us there. So then of course, then I had to represent. I was at all the parties, you would see me there, you know. But I always tell people, because when people knew me, they knew me, oh, the short light skinned girl with the long nails. So then when I got to be a Sigma Gamma Rho, oh, the short light skinned girl with the long nails, that's a Sigma Gamma Rho. Like I didn't change because I had letters. I was still the same person, you know.
Yeah,
So
how was that? You was going from somebody who pledged, and then like you said, you were the newcomer, and now you had to pass the baton, so to say, once you became an upperclassman, and it was like, okay, I gotta teach the younger ones that's part of this the sorority what this is about. I gotta keep the tradition. Um, and it's funny, and for the people in the chat, I know Nicole a little bit, and this side of her is not the side of her that she shows everybody. So, you being so personal with people, with the college experience, with the sorority experience, how was that for you?
I mean, it's honestly it's second nature. Like,
Okay.
um, and you say like, how do I just lead by example, you know. So I show how it's supposed to be done. Not like, okay, you supposed to do this, you supposed to do that. Like you lead by example. So if somebody sees you, okay, you out there doing community service and things like that, then they're probably gonna want to follow the same suit.
Okay.
So a lot of people that I met, that actually were Sigma Gamma Rose, we worked together, and stuff like that. So I got to know them. It wasn't like they pushed it down my throat. Oh, Sigma Gamma Rho, because I'm from a family that didn't have any sororities, fraternities. My mother was like, "What's that? I don't like them cliques. What do they do? Where did that money go?" And then when I talked to her now, she was like, "Yeah, I remember I was asked to be in a sorority. It was a honors sorority. I was like, "Mom, that's a little bit different." But, but that's the only really sorority she do, honor sorority or something like that. So, yeah, but just
So
leading by example.
we're gonna forward to go backwards, right?
All right.
So now you graduated college, moved on. Um, you worked with a mutual friend of ours, a sister to me and you. Um, and you got invited to the poetry corner. Well, let's talk. You got invited to Let's Talk.
Mm.
Explain when you did. Usually when a person comes to Facebook groups and channels, we all, I believe, sometimes have a little apprehension because sometimes you'd be like, okay, is this the same type of old group that everything else is? Same topic. So when you seen that they had a poetry show, because you said it in your book, and the channel has a poetry corner show every Tuesdays and Thursdays now. Explain that, like your first time seeing it.
It was like a breath of fresh air, kind of, because it was a while that I had actually like written. I have a lot, even in my book, there are a lot of stuff that I have, a lot of poems that are older. Of course, I added some new ones in there, but I had really stopped writing. So I was like, you know what? And I'm seeing the people on the show. I'm like, I could do this, and I made a comment, and then you said, well, get in touch with so and so, So I was like, okay. So then from there, it just took off, and it was like I was on like every week, like it was like,
Yeah, you know what's amazing is that our sister, she when you were on the first show, she commented. She was like, "I ain't know Nicole wrote poetry." Um,
mhm,
and the reason why I bring that up, looking back at it now, like you know, you never want to criticize your journey to get to where you're at. I believe that's where the success, that's where the appreciation is for all of us. But you never want to criticize it. But it's like some things you could have did over again. Do you wish that back then you would have just kept writing, or you happy with where you are and how it all transpired?
I'm happy. I'm happy where I am. Um, and I always say, you probably hear me say this a million times. Everything happens for a reason. So I don't like, okay, well, why it is? Well, I try not to, because there's some things I do ask,
Hmm.
why. But yeah, it was meant to be. It didn't, you know, it got me back into writing. It got me into expressing my feelings, things like that. So I enjoy that, and even just the being with Let's Talk. Period. It was just like it was different comments and stuff that were made and conversations that we would have. So it wasn't like, I don't know how many groups that I have, but to say how many I'm really actively involved in, I could probably say maybe two, maybe three.
It's funny that you said that as somebody that I didn't know prior to starting the channel and the pages, and then we've grown to have a tremendous friendship. Is I the initial thing was the channel first, and then the group started after the channel. And I said I was advised, so start a group, and the group would be more like a sister to the channel. That did not go well. It just like I always tell people when we talk about the Let's Talk group, the group and the channel are totally different. Because the group has a mind of its own, and it has
Yeah.
subjects, and it could be a little
Yes.
touchy in there, even though the vision for myself and people that I always seek advice is to is for people to have an open dialogue and have an open conversation about any and everything. But it's unfortunate that a lot of us, we can't have that type of dialogue without being offensive and being offended by
Exactly.
so many things.
Yeah.
Um, but anyway, I always ask a question when I used to be in co-hosting the poetry corner. Now I don't do it as much as I want to, but I have a different role now. I always ask a question about art and poetry. We're writing poetry, Nicole. Do you feel like your words? impact other people?
I think so. Um, I would have to say, out of my book, I have umpteen poems. I don't even know the count, but I'm pretty sure that hello, especially I think Zanice. Um, I think it'll touch somebody, or maybe that person can relate because they know somebody who might have went through it, things like that. So, um, and then some are just blanket topics like love, you know, um, heartbreak, stuff like that. So, yeah, I think everybody can get a little something out of it.
Yeah, I think the mind, and unfortunately, we see it every day with different people. The mind of an artist, like I tell you guys, I have a seat every week with poetry that is unique because I don't consider myself a poet. Never tried to write poetry, but I listen to everybody's poems. And the mind, the creative mind that you guys have, I believe you can impact people with your words. You can impact. Uh, you could change a narrative, the thought. You get to put your thoughts down on paper. So I think it's
Mm,
interesting. So now you've been on the show a couple of times. You did a couple of shows on Epiphany.
yeah.
How is it with the network of poets? I mean, I'm quite sure you done met a lot of poets through
Mm.
TikTok, Instagram, and all this.
Yeah, it's I really didn't know like the poetry world was so big. Um, it's crazy because um, beforehand I did maybe like an open mic here or there, um, but like literally when I'm on Instagram, I'm seeing notifications. Oh, this person is doing open mic, or this person is on live now, stuff like that. So it's definitely big, and now that things are starting to open up more, then people are doing live things. So that's exciting too. And I've done a couple of things like recently
In Rawway, huh?
in Norway. Yeah. So
My
uh,
neck of the woods.
yeah, I was out there. So I try to do it when I can. Cause it's just crazy to see, like, even being on the show, the Poetry Corner, it was like we could have a topic, but everybody brought like their own twist of the topic, which was so crazy. So you might not like what I'm bringing, but then that other person, they might be tickling your ear like, oh, dag, okay, So it was crazy.
You know,
So
one of the things that we had did, and you were actually part of why I did it. With whoever came on the poetry corner, the way we used to do it is the newer poet let off, and the reason why I believe that actually made that newer poet to the show more comfortable, and it basically sets the tempo because not often nothing when you come into a poetry, from what I see, you come into a poetry show or whatever, you come to bring your A game.
true.
So you want to show out and show up the first time, so you want to lead off right, and I believe that actually helped a lot of people because it makes you feel comfortable as well. And I know you've been supportive with a lot. How many poets have you bought their books? Let's talk about that first.
Hey, it's been a number. So I'm thinking, I'm thinking back. I'm like, wait a minute, didn't I buy this one? So I'm waiting. I'm like, I understand everybody pockets ain't lying the same way. I understand that, but I'm just like, well, I don't hear nobody knocking down my door. Like,
We gonna
oh,
get to that. We're gonna get to that.
but
We're gonna get to that.
yeah, I do try to support, and I tell people all the time. Honestly, I might just skim through books. I really try not to read it because when it's on print, I think that you kind of subconsciously kind of, you know, get into your head, which I don't want to take anyone's work and subconsciously for mine. So that's why I really don't read it, but I do. I'll skim across things, and I did look at a lot of different books when I came up with mine, because I want to be, and I not putting anyone's down, but I just want to be a little bit different. I wanted to kind of grab you, so that's why in mine you might see little quotes here. I might have a little picture or stuff like that. So you know,
Well, let's talk about that.
yes,
I remember you saying like I'm working on a little something something. I would always ask you each week. I got a little something something. And I would get on you in an encouraging way, and you were able to put this together. Great
yeah,
artwork by T. Lachelle. Shout out to T. Lachelle. And it's
yes,
funny, and let me just speak on T. Lachelle for a minute. She does her graphic arts, but T. Lachelle's an excellent poet, and it's funny because she's so
yes,
supportive of everybody else, and she never really gets an opportunity, or she never wants to, or she never gets put in a situation where she needs to recite her poetry. I think her poetry is very soothing. So shout out to T. Lachelle. So you were able to put the book together, and let's talk about the book, the wow moment, the cover.
definitely. And one quick thing with Tila Shell. So it's so funny because we call each other sis. She's born a day after me. So
Ooh,
I always joke around, say she was
same
the
year.
same year. So I always joke around, say, yeah, she was the lazy one, because she was, we were supposed to be born on the same day. But so but yeah, so she definitely, she's been a great help, even with like questions, what's up, King, that I might have had, or what, I don't know, I'm gonna get you somebody that could give you the answer to that. So and a lot of other people that I've gone to that might have wrote books or things like that. Okay, well, what are you using to put your book together, things like that. So it definitely helped. So not only am I published author, I'm a self-published author. So I think I get a little more on,
Yeah, yeah.
you know.
So let me ask you. You got your book. You got it in print.
Yes, yes.
How was that experience? You took. How did you share that with your mom, your brothers? Like, yo, I'm really doing it. I'm really, because I know they heard it. Like I heard it, and not that they ever doubted you, and I didn't doubt you at all. I knew you was going to do it because you said you was going to do it. But how was it when you finally physically touched your book?
It was that awe moment. Like, I couldn't believe it, because it's different when you're just seeing it, on the screen, and how it's gonna look and everything. But when I actually got it in my hands, and I was like, flipping through it, like, yo, this is me. Like, I made it. Like, I made it, ma. I did it. So it's like, it's definitely it was a wonderful moment. And then the put the ice on the cake, when I actually saw it, like on Amazon.com and Barnes and Noble, like, yo, that's me. That's me right there. So yeah, it
You
definitely
ever
was a great
so
experience.
so now it's out, and now you got to sell your book. Woo.
Yeah, it's a lot of work. It is definitely a lot of work, and I'm not the type of person that likes to sell. You know, um, I do well with it. Even like my job, like, people like, oh, you do so good. Like, look, I just do what I'm supposed to do. Like, I don't, like, some people, they like, oh, I need this, I need that. Look, I just say what I'm supposed to say. It comes, it comes. But I never been the type that wants to,
You got a
ask
you got
somebody
a
to.
box of your books. You got a box of your books in the back seat.
Oh, now I have a box, but I did bring some with me.
Oh, so
actually,
so for
actually,
those in
I'm
the chat,
sorry.
Nicole is actually on a trip right now. So
Yeah.
she's not in her locale. She's at another locale. So she got her books with her. Like, look, anybody I see, anybody I meet, you know how to talk. How is that, Nicole? Like, you striking a conversation with somebody, and it may go from, well, what do you do for a living? Now you may say your job that you go to every day.
Mm.
Do you introduce yourself now as, I'm a self-publishing author and poet?
I don't know if I do, but I know I drop it in there like, oh, by the way,
Yeah.
I got my own book. So it's like, it's pretty cool. But I mean, even today, because I go to some of my old spots that I hung out at and stuff like that. One would be, I'm gonna give you a little shout out, Day Day's Beauty and Barber in Columbia, South Carolina. So, I walk up in there like, yeah, and everybody's like, because I usually come once a year. So like, oh yeah, what's up? Oh, by the way, I do have a book. Yeah, I got some water in the car.
Yeah, so even in that, and I know your personality a little bit. You don't want to come off as like cheesy, but like at
Mm,
the end of the day, like, you got books to sell.
yeah.
These are, you know what I mean?
And
So
the
you
thing is, it's like, and I'm not, because I know, I post, oh, stuff like that, and I don't want to be pushy because somebody actually told me that they kind of got offended. Like, so I'm like, leaving a message because, some people they'll reach out like, oh, yeah, I want to get your book. All right, you ain't say no time, so I'm like, okay, well, I'm mailing out books on Monday. What's like, what
yeah,
you? So they took that as being kind of pushy, which that wasn't my intention. But one, who wants to make 5 million trips to the post office? I
yeah,
mean, just
yeah,
little stuff like that. And I like, no offense, my apologies. I didn't mean it to come off that way, but if you don't tell me, I don't know. So I got people saying, "Oh yeah, yeah, I want a book, I want a book." But then when you wind up getting sold out or something, then, oh, what happened to my book? Like, yo, that was months ago. Like, I done sold it. I done went
yeah,
through them.
yeah.
You
We're
know,
working on the second edition now, like a
you know.
revised edition. Hopefully, you support me then. I thought you were going to support me now. So Nicole, like, what's next? Like, what's next on the agenda besides, like, you self, as we would say, self scouting, self looking at your book, like, okay, I could have did this better, or I got some newer poems I want to express. Are you still in the? I know you're still in the process of selling this book, but I know the mind of an artist is always churning. What you got in store? Or you want to keep that
Yeah.
close to the vest?
Well, what's so funny is somebody said, "Well, when's book two coming out?" Yo, I
Mm.
just put this out last month. So I'm just like, what? Book two? But the thing is, of course, I'm pretty sure there will be a book two because when I was doing this one, it was like I just had to cut it off. Like, yo, I'm not putting no more in it. This is enough. I have enough. I have a substantial amount of work in there, you know. Um, and I felt that it was quality work although some of them are older. I don't push. I guess you'd just say
No, I think
trash.
it was. Like I said, I didn't go through the book because usually when I read a book, Nicole, this may sound a little crazy. I read every book that I have that I read. I read it at least 3 times and I take notes. When I told you I didn't go through the book, I mean I didn't do what I usually do to the book. So I did go through that, and you talked about your life, and you talked about not just poetry, but you talked about you growing as a poet, and you talked about the accident. And I
Yeah,
thought that was interesting because it's like you literally did give a piece of you in the book. Like,
yeah. I think so.
those that know you could be like, oh, she a little mysterious because she laid back. She's not real talkative. So now, as the title of your book, of Pieces of Me, I gave you some poetry. I gave you some history, some backdrop, college, what I went through, um, history with the sorority, history with my accident in my life. And I thought that was very unique and different. And it literally is pieces of you.
Yeah, and the thing was because I'm like, I'm giving a little bit more, because I wanted to put. I wanted to really put the book up for a higher amount, but I was like, let me be easy with it, But I think it's a lot of qualities, and I threw a short story in there too. I was like,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah,
y'all really getting it,
yeah.
but yeah. So, and that's not. I mean, I have plenty of stories that I can tell, and it was funny because I that one that I did, I started writing it, and then my mom said, Nicole, I found I found this paper, you know, or whatever, and I looked at it, and it was actually the story that I originally wrote. But then how sometimes your memory get kind of a little messed up. You might have left out certain things, so I had to combine that with the actual one that I wrote.
Mm-hmm.
So it was hard because if you read through what happened at the end of the story or whatever, it was a lot to get through. So even like trying to edit and stuff like that. Like I asked Tila Shaw, I said, can you look at this? Because it was taking too much. So I wrote it, I rewrote it, I combined it, and it was just like I didn't want to read it again.
Yeah, it's like you telling a story, but it's like, okay, the
You
story
living.
it's a short story,
Yeah.
not a long story.
Yeah,
Now,
it's your
now
story.
this short story is becoming a book within itself. Like, let me slow down and condense it a little bit because it might be overshadowing the rest of the pieces of me.
Yeah.
Um,
But then another quick thing, like with me, and I'm not, I mean, I'm on social media as far as, I might post things here and there, but I give you what I want you to know, you know.
talk that talk.
So like, and even with my book, I tell people like everything is not about me. I have a good imagination. So don't think you done got some dirt like, oh, this happened to her. Oh, no, everything is not about me. But
Yeah,
the majority is.
we tend, like I always say, the mind. We tend to have this imagination when we're reading words, and this is the art of you guys, the artist. Um, I'm an avid reader, and one thing about me when I read, I'm able to picture everything that I'm reading. So I'm like, I'll be into it. Like most books, believe it or not, if it's 300 pages, I can read a book like that in one day with no problem. And the reason
Yeah.
why is because I'm so engulfed in the reading that I don't want to sit it down because my mind is there. The longest book I've ever read in a day was like 700 pages. I just could not put this book down.
Wow.
I was ripping this piece, and the book wound up becoming a trilogy, a mini series on
What
TV.
what was that book if you
I'm
don't?
not giving no shameless plug to no books.
Okay. All right. Well, tell me on the back end. Tell me on the back end. I might want to
I'll
read
let you know off air.
it.
But
Okay.
anyway, Nicole, you
Yeah.
have any final thoughts for us about your book, where to purchase that autograph copy?
Yeah. Well, you could get it directly from me. Definitely will get an autograph copy. So you can get in contact with me on Facebook under Nicole R. Brookins. I have a YouTube channel. So if you go on there, subscribe,
Like, share, subscribe to our YouTube
like,
channel.
share, subscribe. Some poetry pieces on there too. Um, I'm on Clubhouse under Nicole R. Brookins and on Instagram, Clemson Poodle 97.
Great.
But
Well,
yeah, you can
Nicole,
also find me on Barnes and Noble as well as Amazon.com.
we appreciate you joining us, and we look forward to seeing and hearing from you more in the near future.
Thank you. Thank you. I thought I was going to do a poem or something, but okay.
With that, thanks everybody for joining us,
Thank
and
you.
thanks Nicole for coming on the show, and we appreciate you, and we look forward to some great things coming.
Anytime. Thank you.